The royal crowns of ancient Egypt present a bit of a mystery. Their shapes are very distinctive, and the crowns of the two kingdoms appear designed to fit into one another, even though ostensibly they had separate origins. We've never found an ancient Egyptian crown, so we can only speculate as to exactly what they were, that is, if they were anything at all. There were a number of headdresses and crowns depicted in ancient Egyptian iconography, but three in particular are of interest to me right now, the three consistently depicted upon the heads of living pharaohs, or four, but one of them is just a combination of the other two. The largest figure on the Nama palette is the Pharaoh Nama, wearing this distinctive crown, which Egyptologists would prefer us not to call a bowling pin crown, but whose shape irresistibly reminds us of one. It's depicted as white in colour and symbolises rule over Upper Egypt, which is to say the kingdom of the Nile Valley. Veterans of my channel will remember that Upper Egypt was one of the two kingdoms which Nama unified. The white crown, whose Egyptian name was Hedjet, literally the white one, was also associated with a few deities. Both Osiris and the protective goddess Nekhbet are depicted wearing it, or a variant called Atef. The Atef crown is reserved for the gods, and it is the Hedjet affixed with two ostrich feathers, the symbols of the goddess and tenet of Ma'at, the universal principle of truth and justice. Just as distinctive is Deshret, the red one, the crown with a hollow front, tall back, and curled tongue thing. The red crown symbolises Lower Egypt, which more or less describes the Delta region. Like the Hedjet, the red crown is associated with divinity. The protective goddess Wadjet, who was paired with Nekhbet as the two protectors of the pharaoh, was often depicted wearing it. And Neith, who originated in the Delta settlement of Sais, which was the royal city of Lower Egypt, is also depicted wearing the crown, symbolising her position as its heavenly queen, perhaps just as Osiris was once the king of Upper Egypt. Interestingly though, the Deshret crown is never shown adorned with the ostrich feathers of Ma'at. We don't know what these crowns were made from, as no examples have ever been found. It's most likely that they were woven from reeds or grass, which to my mind makes it strange that not one of them made it to a tomb. After all, they would have degraded too much too quickly to have been passed on from one generation to another, so they might as well have been buried with the king who wore them. I'm forced to wonder if the crowns were ever literal objects at all, or merely symbols. I'm wildly speculating, and I doubt many serious scholars would follow me down this rabbit hole, but with all those pharaohs, and the fact that we do have some articles made of reeds that have survived, it all seems strange to me that we don't have a single one of these crowns. The fact that the two crowns almost look designed to fit together is, as the French say, sus, though the Nama palette depicts them separately, predating their first depiction as a unified crown. That unified crown was called Peshent by the Greeks for some reason, but its Egyptian name was Sechemti, the two powers, or the two powerful ones if you insist on translating inelegantly. The Sechemti crown exists as a symbol and perhaps as an actual object, dating back to the first dynasty. It's commonly depicted on the heads of gods associated with kingship, most notably Horus and Ra. Throughout the 18th and 19th dynasties, the so-called war crown was depicted as a headdress worn by pharaohs both in and out of battle. Its origins are during the Second Intermediate Period, when Egypt was suffering internal strife brought on by the nation as a whole refusing to acknowledge the rule of the Hyksos of Lower Egypt. One interesting difference between the Khepresh, whose name I would probably and amateurishly translate as arrived or come into being, and the two older crowns, was that the Khepresh was commonly depicted not smooth but textured. We see these rings, which are interpreted in various ways. Perhaps they were rivets, jewels, rings, or even natural gaps in the weave of reeds. The blue colour is distinctive, as it is not as common or easy to replicate as red or white, though the Egyptians had been using their own artificial blue pigment for millennia before this crown was first depicted. What it precisely symbolised as opposed to the other crowns is unknown, and as it is a newish design, gods are not usually depicted wearing it. I don't know how significant it is that this crown was never worn by the Hyksos. Did it perhaps become a symbol of purity of national identity? I'm not sure we should read that far into it. The gods continued to wear the red and white crowns after all. The Khepresh has been known as the war crown because it's most often seen in war scenes, the pharaoh upon his chariot, for instance, and it makes a cameo in the last good film DreamWorks ever made. Don't at me, you know it's true. And while war crown isn't a name that the Egyptians used and is one that Egyptologists usually avoid, that remains its most common depiction, with the dual red and white crown remaining the default for larger royal statues and carvings. There's a lot more to Egyptian attire, even headdresses, but I think that will suffice for this video. Let me know if you want more on the ancient Egyptian wardrobe. We've been able to piece together a lot of nuance about Egyptian society based on depictions of and remains of their garments. Thanks as always to my viewers, subscribers and commenters. The channel is growing steadily and it's wonderful to see. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at armchair_Egypt and to join the Discord server whose invite link is below. I've got some big news in the pipeline which is very exciting and you don't want to miss it. Love and gratitude to my wonderful backers on patreon.com/armchairegypt who keep the lights on around here. Until next time, my fellow armchair Egyptologists, life, prosperity and health to you all. Thanks for watching. Head over to my channel for more, or click here to see what the YouTube demons think you should watch next. I hope you'll consider subscribing. If you'd like to support and collaborate on the channel with me, go to patreon.com/armchairegypt. You can also join my Discord community, there's an invite link in the description.